Hello everyone! So I haven't done a video in a while, but just wasn't feeling it in December, I guess. So here we are in January. It's a new decade, it's a new year, and I'm going to start off this year with a wrap-up video of November and December of 2019 because I didn't read that much in November because I was doing NaNoWriMo, so I didn't do a reading wrap-up for November. So I figured I would just do a wrap-up of November and December together, okay? So the first book that I read in November was Daughter of the Forest by Juliet Marillier, and this was actually a reread for me. I first read it in high school, I think, so it was a really long time ago, and I haven't really reread it since, I don't think, so it was kind of like reading it for the first time because it's been so long. I remember when I read it in high school, I really loved it, and it was one of my favorite books for a really long time. And I had given it 5 stars, but I actually lowered my rating on second reading. I listened to it via audiobook, and I don't know, I liked it. I still really liked it, but I didn't love it. I wouldn't consider it one of my favorite books anymore. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. And what it's about is it's about this girl whose brothers end up being turned into swans by their evil stepmother, basically. And she has to weave a bunch of shirts for them out of this really prickly plant, so it really messes up her hands in order to get them back. And during the time that she is weaving these shirts, all sorts of things happen to her, bad and good, and mostly bad. But it's a really interesting story, and I know it's like a retelling of a classic Irish fairy tale, I think. But I don't know, it was just a little too, I guess, slow for me this time around. Like, it was, I guess my patience for like really slow, drawn out fantasies has kind of gone down with age. So it just kind of moved a little too slowly for me and wasn't quite fast paced enough for me. But I still really enjoyed the story. I still gave it 4 stars. So yeah. So the second book that I finished reading in November was The White Princess by Philippa Gregory. And that one I also gave 4 stars, and this one is about the wife of King Henry VII, and the relationship between her and her husband, and also her husband's mother and her own mother, and all this stuff, and all the, I don't know how much of it is true or how much of it was made up, but it was a really interesting historical fiction. I didn't like it quite as much as I liked the other books in this Plantagenet Tudor series that Philippa Gregory has written. I think I've read all the other ones. I didn't like it quite as much as, like, I just read The White Queen as well. And I really liked that one probably more than this one. And I really liked The Kingmaker's Daughter and the Red Queen. All of them were really good. This one was really good too, but it just wasn't, I don't think the material, the historical material for it was quite as interesting as the historical material for those books. So, but the next book that I finished in December was this book, Anger is a Gift by Mark Oshiro. And this book I also gave 4 stars. See, most of the books I read, I think almost all the books I read in November, December were given 4 stars. But this book is about a boy whose father was killed in a police shooting a while ago, and he has PTSD from it. But more what's happening now is the school that he's at in Oakland is getting metal detectors, and he and a bunch of his friends want to protest that, especially after one of their friends is treated really badly by a school resource officer and kind of brutalized by one of them. So it's a lot to do with police brutality, and I don't know if it's because of my privilege or the fact that I don't come from a place where police use this much force against people, but I found a lot of what happened in this book really hard to believe. It really messed with my at some points it felt like I was reading like a dystopian novel. Like, that's how bad it got. That's how, like, and by bad I mean how bad the police brutality in this book got, is that I felt like I was reading some sort of dystopian novel. Like, oh my god, how could this happen? And then it like kind of clicked in my brain that, like, maybe for a lot of people in this country, it is like living in a dystopian novel, which really unsettled me and made me feel kind of upset. Like, this book was really upsetting. And then I read the author's note where he mentions that the book used to be the first planned in a sci-fi trilogy. So I'm not quite sure how much of the sci-fi elements ended up sticking through, or if all that horrible technology that the police officers used against these students is real. Like, I don't know. But yeah, it was really a really upsetting book to read, just like to think that police officers would treat citizens in the way that they treat people in this book. Like, was really hard for me to read about. And I recommend it for anybody who is interested in reading about police brutality and learning about police brutality. But yeah, like, crazy trigger warnings though, especially if you have anything like PTSD or anything like that. Like, this book was not easy to read, even for me, who is usually not triggered by things like that, who doesn't have any real, yeah. So just, I highly recommend it, but be forewarned. And the next book that I read in December was One Day in December by Josie Silver. And this book I read on my e-reader, so I don't have a copy of it, but it was basically a Christmassy romance book about this girl or this woman who sees a man from her, it takes place in London, so she's on a double-decker bus, and she's on the top deck, and she looks down at one of the bus stops and sees this man and has like an instant connection with him, and he sees her. They have an instant connection, and they both think about either getting off the bus or getting on the bus, and then neither of them get off the bus. So it's like one of those, neither of them make the move, so the bus moves on without them meeting each other. And then she spends the next year looking for this bus boy, hoping to find him. But of course, it's London, it's a massive city, you're not going to find him. But then she ends up finding him one day when her best friend introduces her to her new boyfriend. So, and that new boyfriend turns out to be Busboy. So that's the setup for the romance story that then ensues. I will say I really enjoyed it. However, that if you have any qualms against, if you're one of those people who sees like no kind of cheating, even if it's just a kiss during a relationship, is okay. If you have any sort of problems with any sort of level of cheating, that immediately turns you off to a romance, then you probably wouldn't like it. And to be honest, there was a part of it that didn't sit well with me, but in the end I did end up liking it. So it was the cute story. It's definitely the type of story you want to read around Christmas, because it definitely is a very Christmassy story. It takes place over many, many, many years, and it's not all during Christmas, but the beginning of it is during Christmas, and then the end of it, the last like wrap up where things finally are going right and whatever, happens around Christmas as well. So it's definitely a good book to read around Christmas. And I ended up giving it 4 stars, if I haven't said that already. 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I read in December was Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This book, I feel like I was really excited to read it because a lot of booktubers that I like have been talking about it, or talking about the series rather. And so I was like really excited to get into it. I read it because it was super short and I needed to get another book in before this video. I actually needed to get 2 books in to reach my Goodreads goal, but I didn't end up doing that. And it's a story about a school for children who have at one point or another disappeared into their own worlds and been forced to come back to the real world and aren't really adjusting too well. So like all these children have been to other worlds through doors that have opened in their lives and loved those worlds and felt at home in those worlds, and then ended up having to come back to the real world for whatever reason, to our world, for whatever reason, and they'd been gone for a while in this world and were thought to have been kidnapped or something. All of the children's experiences are different, and but they come back talking about these other worlds they had been to, and so people think they're crazy, and so they end up getting sent to this school for these children, which is actually a supportive school run by a woman who had also been to one of those worlds during her childhood, and she tries to help them cope with the fact that they now have to live in this world. Anyway, I didn't hate this book, but I didn't love it. I didn't realize it was going to turn into basically a murder mystery. So for those who don't know, it basically turns into a murder mystery, and I had no idea that's where it was going when I started it, and I didn't really like it. I didn't really like that turn. Once that happened, I was pretty much not very invested in it and not very interested in it. Maybe I'm just not a fan of murder mysteries. I don't know. I don't read crime novels for a reason, but I don't know. I gave it 3 stars because it was well written, and there was lots of good representation in it as far as like different types of sexualities and gender expression. So I really liked that about it, but and you know, the writing is good, and the concept, I think, of all these children who have gone to different worlds was interesting, and all that, but I didn't like the murder mystery aspect of it, and didn't love the book. So gave it 3 stars. I don't think I'll be continuing with the series. And that's it for my November and December wrap up. Let me know if you've read any of these books and if you like them or don't like them in the comments. Let me know if you are thinking of reading any of these books now that I've talked about them. And yeah, if you are new to this channel, hi, my name is Ruth. Please subscribe. Please like this video if you liked it, and I'll see you all in my next one. Bye!